All the Asians were given 90 days to leave. However, as my father was a civil servant in the Northern District territory as a general GM, living in a European sector, we were invited, well, all the heads of family were invited, including the Europeans who were there, to Kampala to endorse that they had the right to stay on or not, being British subjects and citizens. So as a consequence, the convoy was set up. Dad left at 2 a.m. in the morning. By lunchtime, the office had a phone call, and the office staff then went to each of the residences saying, start packing. Only the Israeli family were spared. So the rest of the families had 48 hours to leave the country, as opposed to 90 days. And the local adjutant general then set up a return convoy for the families from the Northern District to travel to Kampala and get on the flights out. So it was very different to the normal Asian families and business folk. Well, it was a dusky evening, October the 14th. There was no snow when we landed, but it was dark, cold and clammy. So we'd experienced frost when we landed at Stansted Airport in the morning, which we'd never seen before. Getting off the plane, we could see that on the grass as from Stansted on the journey down to Exeter. The first memory of the camp was getting off a coach on a cold, dark evening and being ushered into the main reception hall where there was a whole lot of clothing laid out, and we were traversed through several tables, and then after that going into the medical camp and having some x-rays taken. And then we were assigned by, I remember distinctly and vividly, a WRVS lady was there who said, they've been assigned to hut number 15. And we were escorted by a member of the Red Cross to hut number 15 as a family. The only way to describe it, that the audience may understand it, is consider a modern garden shed, a wooden slatted shed. That's what the huts were like, but rather larger than a garden shed, and it accommodated approximately 4 families of 4, with one bucket toilet by the doorway. And there were no walls, there were just wooden partitions or screens, and 2 sort of a table and camp beds which folded in, which were made of wood as well, 2 blankets, and that was it. No carpet, no nothing. Mum and Dad were involved quite actively, being one of the few English speakers there. A school was set up, and I remember going there, and I do remember my teacher's name as well, Jo Cuthbertson, and she was amazed that there was one student there, and it had to be him, who did speak English, could help out. So yes, class monitor, effectively. And you know, they held classes, they helped us through, and you know, the education didn't have a curriculum per se, from what I can remember, but to a lot of the people or children there, it was learning the basics, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, and adding up. And you know, sort of I ended up assisting. Having been in the first 2 or 3 waves of the arrivals, we had been used to English food and English cuisine, so to us it wasn't a great shock, but we could see that the other Asian, you know, community, it was unheard of. You know, you don't have toast for breakfast or cereal, you know, or porridge in an Asian household, and the food seemed very bland to many of them. There was a lot of wastage, and then the whole situation was soon addressed, because they said, look, we can see you're not coping with this food, and the hierarchy then managed to get the residents involved in helping them cook, cater. If you had any sort of nursing qualification, you helped out in the medical centre, as it was known, at the bottom of the camp. And various people did try things, but being a young boy, you know, I just got involved with the youngsters, and the activities I ran. And in fact, just seen a newsletter in which I'm mentioned, where I set up a Red Cross unit in the thing. So we ended up with about 25 to 30 youngsters who joined the Red Cross as cadets and learnt first aid and things. I was in the Red Cross in Uganda in my school, as opposed to Boy Scouts, which was another group. I decided that I'd join the Red Cross because it seemed to be better facilitated, shall we say. And I wore my initiation badge on my jacket or jumper when I came to Heathfield camp, and that was spotted by one of the helpers amongst them, who I developed a close link with, and they said they were delighted, and he sort of asked me a few questions. So he said, so you are a proper Red Cross person, it's not just a badge stuck on. And I developed the unit in the camp to help and assist with, alongside with two very good gentlemen, both who've passed away now, and I continued through the Red Cross. One of the things I discovered is I was the only Asian child in a comprehensive school in Exeter, and we had no idea about how schools operated in those days, so we just got taken there. My sisters got taken to a primary school, I got taken to a secondary school, and that was it. And then as you went through school, you discover, and your parents discover, well, that's not the right school for my son. But it was too late to change schools at that stage. And it was a learning curve, shall we say, of kindness, harshness, bullying on the side. And you survived. And from my school then, I made a few firm friends who in fact all joined the forces because we played sports together, and most of them joined the forces. I then went on to the main college in town, which is Exeter College, where I made more friends, and I've kept in touch with them as and when, and some of them know my story, some didn't know my story until very recently. And to them it was a big eye-opener. I was fortunate enough in knowing about UK because of Dad's work. I used to have lots of European friends, and Dad had lots of expats who worked with him. So they knew that the Southwest was the place where a lot of people retired. The weather was brilliant compared to the northern areas. And that's one of the things that helped my dad and us as a family in staying on in the Southwest. And I remember at the resettlement camp when we had the interview, and they asked us, where would you like to go? We've got Birmingham, Telford, Glasgow and Bristol. And Dad said, can I not stay in the Southwest? And he said, what? Most of your people want to go up to the north. Which really, I remember, because he was quite sort of surprised. And that's how we came to remain in the Southwest. One of the things that is often missed out is how we were helped. And there was a particular lady called Jean Lamb who lived in Thornton, which is not far away from Exeter. She actually got involved through WRVS and through Exeter Cathedral as a helper, a volunteer. She invited us to her mansion at that time in Thornton, which is the original Berry House, for Christmas, and we'd never had a Christmas meal. And she'd asked some young children, one from Blundell's and one from Exeter, to come along to sort of entertain myself and my two sisters and some adults. We had a lovely Christmas lunch, a stroke dinner. We saw our first pantomime in the village, and then lo and behold, later on in the evening, when we got back home to our house, there were carol singers, and she asked me to go and open a door, and I was amazed. I'd never seen carol singers before. And we kept in touch with Jean and her son Charlie, who now resides in Nepal, throughout, and we've been firm friends all the way through. And of course, the assistance offered by the friends I'd made through my contact with the Red Cross. And I kept in touch with them, and I stayed in the Red Cross. I became an instructor, an examiner, and an advanced first aider in those days. But then university life, sports, etc. took its toll, and I just keep in touch with some friends along the way.